Hey, buddy. Hi, my son.
Hi.
How are you, buddy?
Well, y'all, welcome back to the Abundant Harvest Homestead. Our family just got a little more abundant, and that is because we've now had our 9th child, baby boy. So now we have 4 sons and 5 daughters. And the last time we had a baby was during the Feast of Tabernacles. We went up to Missouri, and my lady normally goes a week or 2 early, so we were planning on, looks like we're going to have it there. This one too looked like we were going to have it there, 2 years later, but the same time period. And I talked to my friend who was hosting that particular Feast of Tabernacles, and I said, hey, if we come up again to your Feast of Tabernacles, I realize there's 51 other weeks out of the year because it's an 8-day long thing. I said, but if we come up again, could we have another baby there? But we didn't have the baby there, and it actually worked out really well. At the time, I'd say we were a little disappointed, right? And we were trying to kind of have it there. But because of how this one happened, I can see why our Heavenly Father waited till afterwards for us to be able to do that. So what day did you have this one as far as during your gestation period, which normally lasts, normally you go a week or 2 early?
We had him 40 weeks. So
40 weeks on the actual due date. So I, told her, I said, hey, took 9 children, but they finally got the due date right. Yeah. And we've had 4 hospital births and 5 outside the hospital. So we had 3 hospital births up in Wisconsin, then 1 home birth in our living room. Moved down here, had our first one in the hospital, Bugger. And then we had 2 at a midwife's birthing place about a half hour from us. Had the one up in Missouri at the Feast of Tabernacles 2 years ago. And then Precious Pepper, our former littlest one. And then this one, we actually had about an hour from us at a different midwife's place, in Arkansas. So with this one, we'd got home a couple Fridays ago from the Feast of Tabernacles. Had the Sabbath off. That Sunday afternoon, evening, her contractions started picking up. Middle of the night. It was like 2 o'clock by the time we left here, wasn't it? Something like that. So. And then we had an hour drive. And on that hour drive, I think you had about 5 contractions during that hour. I'm just trying to concentrate, get her somewhere quickly. Didn't know if we were going to have one, in the vehicle on the way and have to name him Carson or something. But we made it there. And it was a very, very interesting and different birth than we've ever had. Do you want to share a bit about why?
We had to do a lot of work ahead of time. A lot of work. So we were curve walking, we were doing squats, working a lot on the birth ball and the peanut ball, trying to get the baby into a good position to make sure he could come down. And I think for a little bit the contractions kind of slowed down because I didn't get in the birth pool right away because that was what I was going to birth in the birth pool. So I was waiting to get pretty progressed along before I got in there so that the labor wouldn't slow down. But as soon as we got to the midwives, the contractions slowed down. First they were like 8 to 9 minutes apart, and then they were started going to 15 minutes apart, and then
It wasn't kind of I started having contractions, they got more intense, and they got really intense when we had a baby, which is normally the way she goes. Some of them only take a couple hours from the time they really, hey, yep, we're going to have it now, and within a couple hours, boom, we have a baby. That was not the case this time.
So then I got in the birth pool and things seemed to slow down a little bit. So I got out of there so that things would progress. And we did a few more things to try to encourage the contractions to continue. And after that, they did get stronger and they continued. And not long after that, we were into the very strong.
Right, and she was
Contractions.
trying all sorts of positions, all sorts of things, all sorts of just stuff to get her hips in the right spot. She was dilated well, not completely effaced. This guy's got hiccups right now. He actually had them the day before he was born. It was really neat just kind of feeling the womb and feeling those hiccups. And you can see him kind of playing with his hands too. He's a little bit good at self-soothing already and kind of playing around with his environment. But as well, like the contractions being so variable, the midwife was checking, monitoring. He was always fine on, heart rate and stuff like that. She was doing excellent with her, what do they call it? Whatever. Your vitals, I guess. And he was kind of always never really in position as well. He seemed kind of angled and kind of high. So that went on for a while. Eventually, he started having more bloody show. I remember we were just kind of swaying together in the bathroom and stuff. She was having contractions, and normally, with a contraction in a birth, my role, I've been there for all of them, huh? Yeah. And my role is to tell her this is going to be over soon, that she can do it, and I just kind of repeat those softly, gently, and like, hey, this is going to be over soon, darling. You can do this. And then when she goes, shh, then I stop. And I'm just there. There, supporting, but not adding any more noise to the area. And this time was very different because for a while, she was really asserting me to use my strong voice. So I'd be like, darling, this is going to be over soon. And then what would you say?
I said, darling, I need your strong voice.
And she's like, with your strong voice. And I'm like, darling, this is going to be over soon. Like, you can do this. And I felt almost like I was shouting at her like a high school football coach or something. Just, but that's what she needed at the time. She felt so almost helpless. She knew there was only one way through, but it was getting very laborious after almost 24 hours of contractions going on. And she kind of wanted to hear that I was there in my strength. And rely on that as well as our Heavenly Father's strength. I just kept reminding her, like, Yahovah is your strength, and God's going to see you through this, and He's going to bring this forth. Just rely on Him and His strength. And eventually, you're in the birthing pool. Her normal kind of when she's done births before, she just likes to be on her hands and knees and kind of swaying and rocking, and then start kind of pushing with that. Definitely some vocalization to help her through the contractions, just kind of some oohing and different noises. And then eventually, when it gets time, I normally just see her just kind of put her head underwater, blow a ton of bubbles, and baby comes out the back. But this time, just a lot of vocalization, just a lot of going on. And you've done a lot of research even this time. She watched probably hours of birthing videos, did a lot of research, which is why we work well together. She's definitely a researcher. I'm more of a doer, so I'm more to just plow off and do something. She researches first, so if we can combine on things, then she can just tell me how to do something the right way. But she was doing more of, what do you call it when you're flapping your lips for the vocalization?
It was called the horse lips breath.
Can you give an example of that? So
you
rather than her just being like,
breathe in a normal,
she
you
would
just
switch to,
inhale, and you breathe out with horse lips. So that's what I chose to do this time. I thought it was going to be a little awkward, but it actually really helped me. And I was watching a lady online on YouTube who mentioned that as one of the breathing techniques that you can use, and she said it relaxes all of your vocal cords and your muscles in your mouth, and I don't remember what else, but it's very helpful. And I kind of used that as the contractions got really, really intense. That just helped me kind of distract me a little bit, but still keep my focus on the contractions. And So that's what I did this time, which I've never done before, but like I said, it was very helpful
Can you get her a
as
cover up?
things started to get a lot stronger. Usually I just will breathe normal, just inhale and exhale, but as I was researching more ways to birth better, I found that there's other techniques. There was a J breath you could do for pushing, where you kind of breathe your baby out. You just inhale for 4 seconds and then you exhale, making different vowel sounds like ooh or ah, and you just kind of try to like not breathe out so much but breathe in through your body and push down your body. You kind of like pull your insides up and in and tight and
Yeah.
then relax everything.
And that's one thing too. They were kind of recommended with some kind of like pulling the baby up somewhat when she was having these contractions and trying to help it kind of drop down in position. So we were doing an amount of that, doing all sorts of stuff, just trying to get things the way it should be. Eventually, this had gone on for a long time. The midwife was there, as was an assistant she works with sometimes. The midwife was saying sometimes ladies will kind of do that type of vocalization to not push. And it's like, well, she was doing this in the bed a long time ago, you know. I kind of mentioned that pushing for her, that urge to push is like an old friend. She's very well accustomed to it. She knows that feeling. And when it shows up, she knows its purpose and she's going to work with it. And she was really just trying to work with her body through this. And the midwife's like, well, you're not 100% thinned out, you know, but you're basically like a 9. The baby's not really in position, but it's there. It's like close. And she says, I think you should just go for it. So at that point, my lady really just started bearing down, going hard. And a number of things happened rather quickly. While she gets things hooked up here, I'll give you the short version, then we'll go a little more in depth. But basically, the head eventually got where it needed to be. That somewhat terrified you, right? And then we realized there was a cord on the neck. And what we realized afterwards is that this young man had a very short umbilical cord. And you combine that with being wrapped around the neck, it's my belief that on his own he didn't really have the freedom to get fully in position, apply that pressure on the cervix, help things dilate in the face and thin, and then get into the birth canal and prepare for birth. So she was able to kind of force things with her body to head in the right direction, but this guy had a 14.5 inch circumference to his head. He was a very round head. Sometimes babies will come out rather cone shaped, and that's because of the pressure from the birth canal and the amount of time they spend there. It's fine. They have a very soft, top of their skull and stuff, but it makes it easier to pass through that birth canal. He didn't basically have any of that, and then his head was also at a different angle, which made it more round rather than coming through at a slightly better angle. So she's feeling this giant head there. Mm-hmm. If you'd share your horror story of that with him. It was all right. She made it through. She's done this before. There was no tearing, but this was, a thing.
I just felt that it felt quite big as I began to push, and it just didn't feel like it wanted to come out. And so, I tried again, and very quickly in my thoughts I was thinking I might have to go in for a C-section if I can't get the baby out. Like, how is it going to come out if it doesn't want to come out? Like, it's just because it felt so big. And then I was thinking, if I can't get it out, I have to jump out of the pool and run around like a crazy woman screaming like I can't get it out. Or I did envision myself in the back of the vehicle just screaming, not being able to get the baby out, because it just came very quickly and I was starting to panic.
And
So
the midwives had a certain high level of concern. Of course, she did, I did. We have to remain level-headed. We have to remain focused and, concentrating on what's going on at hand. But a birth, even when it goes well, I think it's absolutely beautiful, because at the end you have this child who comes and, the mother is delivered of that baby. And there's this beautiful moment where, you know, here you have the mom, here you have the baby, everything's wonderful, new life has entered the world. But it's also like incredibly traumatic because there is pain, there's blood, there's a lot of times different levels of vocalization or screaming or things happening. And, you know, thankfully we've been able to have 9 just drug-free vaginal births here in our life, in our marriage. But like, it's terrifying. It's like, am I gaining a child right now, or am I losing my wife, or am I losing both of them? I mean, even when things go relatively well. So she was very concerned. Big old head. All of a sudden, we get told, you know, cord on the neck, and then she raised out of the pool. And basically, if you're trying to have a birth, the baby needs to come out underwater, in a water birth, face down, lifted out of there. And if any time this head's out and he raises above and then goes back under, you gotta stay out of the water because you don't want them to take a big old gulp of that water when they're trying to get their first breath. So in all this, all of a sudden, she's above. There's a cord on the neck. The one's very concerned. The other one kind of like checked how loose it was or whatever. And I was right there. So you had my lady here, me here, one midwife, another midwife, and I was right at the edge of the pool right there. She's raised and, you know, and bent forward, so there's baby coming up behind her. And I went to feel how much give there was on that cord. And in doing so, she must have still been pushing because it immediately went from neck, you know, and head and cord to shoulders. Well, once the shoulders are out, there's not a lot else holding that baby. So in that process, it was like I went to kind of feel, she must have pushed shoulders, and I'm like, hey, we got shoulders, and then the whole body's out. So at that point, it was just a rotation. Baby's out, rotation. Now we have a baby that's been delivered with no cord on the neck. And that right there, who's also out of the water, was just a fantastic feeling and level of success. And I noticed pretty much right away in that, I'm like, oh, we've had a male child here. And then got her up to the bed, out of there. Is there anything else you want to mention about being in the pool or all that stuff or things?
I was very tired
Shoot.
during the whole thing because I didn't sleep the night
Right,
before we went.
right. You started kind of in the late afternoon.
Yep,
4 or
and then
5.
I started timing the contractions, I think around 10 something. So I was up till 11, timing them, making sure, you know, this is really starting. So, because we had an hour drive, so I wanted to make sure things are really going on. And then after that, I was just like, well, I'm going to make my labor electrolyte drink, which was amazing, which I used
The trifoliate citrus
lemons
from our trees.
and trifoliate citrus. It was delicious, like every time, and it was the best. I was so glad that I made it, and every
with ginger
time,
and stuff too, right?
Yep.
Just a special drink with
Ginger.
electrolytes to.
and some homemade apple cider vinegar, honey, and some pink salt. It was delicious. Every time I had something to drink, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. This is so good. Every
She
single time during the
specifically
labor.
made it for herself for such
Yep.
a time as that, you know.
I made a gallon of that, and that
You drank it all.
lasted the whole birth, which was, I was really glad I made that. It was very helpful, and it helped me to be cheerful in those little moments. So it was nice. But I was very, very tired. And I was falling
For a
asleep
while,
in the
yeah.
birth pool as well.
For a while before the incredible pushing, she was actually just like nodding off in between. So I was like, darling, here's some ice, here's some ice. I'll put some cold ice in her mouth. And she'd like snap to it for a moment. But she was, you know, I still wanted her resting. I just didn't want her falling asleep, you know, in the birthing pool.
So that was also very different, just how long it was and just a very long time. I was starting to get kind of discouraged during it. I'm like, when is this going to be done?
Because you've successfully done this in much less time, many
So,
times.
Yeah, so a long, long time really was discouraging me as well. So
Yeah, but got him out. We both cut the cord together, and I mean, it was nice too, because in a hospital, it's like, hey, a baby's delivered, let's cut the cord. Where here, it's like all sorts of stuff is going on. We're just, you know, moving forward. The moment that like eventually, like, oh yeah, we got to cut the cord too. There's no rush. I don't know why hospitals are so keen on just an immediate type thing. It seems like they push, But there's also a lot of people who like advocate for letting the umbilical cord stop pulsing and stop functioning first. Like, let it finish its job, and then we'll cut ties with the mother in that way. But he was really good too. He came out. He was dark. He was purpley to a degree. But like I said, it's like, it wasn't many pushes you had to push through to get him out. And once things happened, she was on it so hard. From the time that head came to the time the whole baby was out with the thing, I mean, I don't know if that was a minute. Maybe it was slightly over that, but she stuck to the goal. She focused on what she was going to do and got him out. Like I said, thankfully, when the shoulders came out, the rest of the body just came, and it was just a rotation. And all of a sudden, he's got no restriction. We're able to go, suck the stuff out of his throat. He started crying and screaming right away. He also was very aware, able to latch on very shortly after, because if a baby's able to nurse right away, that nursing helps that placenta. The contractions to set in, I think, to help force the placenta out next. So he was doing that. Yeah, the skin-to-skin contact after a birth is very important too. In fact, when she went to wash up, I just, opened up my shirt and put him there, and just kind of held on to him. A lot of vernix for 40 weeks. He was pretty cheesy, if you will. But nice and hairy, nice and happy, nice and healthy. Eyes were opening shortly thereafter. One of his ears was kind of squished, and one of his eyes was a little puffy when he came out, but he was good. And thankfully, we made it through. And even with, a 24-hour labor process to delivery, which we'd never personally experienced. Some people go a lot longer. They really do. You made it through. We didn't need any medical intervention, any hospital, and able to do it just drug-free natural birth once again.
Very thankful for that. Because there could, it could have gone that way. But we did have a lot of people, lots of friends praying for us
A lot.
during that time, which we really needed.
And a lot of meals coming in lately too, which is really nice. And one interesting thing about meals is now we're a family of 11, of which we have 10 eaters. This is how this guy eats. So some people aren't as familiar with cooking for, almost a dozen people. So when they bring food, they're like, I hope this is enough. And we get like 2 or 3 meals out of it, which is really nice too. I'll do a lot of cooking around here. I took a lead role in the tacos, prepping them. Somebody dropped the stuff off, but getting them all assembled and prepped and stuff. But that's also something the children or my lady helps with. So now none of us really need to worry about that. Just doing dishes when we're done and heating meals up if they're, not piping hot when they get here. So thank you, everyone who appreciates us, everyone who's been helping us, everyone who's been praying for us. It's been a huge blessing, something very special, and it's interesting just to have now 9 children. It doesn't seem like that many sometimes. I remember looking around the table, like, everyone's here, like where some people would just be overwhelmed looking at that many faces, especially at a dinner table. A lot of food, but what else do you have for closing thoughts?
I'm definitely glad that it's all past us now. And it was at that moment that it was done. That was good. Because, like I said, well, I think you said, when the midwife decided to, I think she broke my water as well. She asked if she could break my water as well
Yep.
to help, progress things. And then after that,
And was there a double bag of waters or no?
she was thinking so. She said sometimes
it seemed like there was a water bag that it broke, but yet there was still a water bag there. And I guess sometimes there can be a double. We're not completely sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So, anywho, what was I saying?
You were talking about her breaking the waters
She broke the
to
water.
help progress.
No, I don't remember what I was gonna say. Huh.
But we will be including this guy in upcoming videos. May have to reshoot a new Abundant Harvest Homestead intro because that one doesn't work anymore. And yeah, we've got some more stuff to share. some more other things, but we just wanted to give you guys an update, let you see him. He's nursing now. We got somewhere to be, so I'm going to roll just that intro footage for an outro. And thank you guys so much for your support, care for our family. Thank you for watching our videos too. That's one of the things that adds to our stream of revenue for me being able to provide from the house, so I don't have to leave as often. It's not much these days, but it helps, and we appreciate the relationship that we have with you guys. So thank you so much. I'll roll that outro, the footage of him again, and we'll see you next time. Papa out.
Come on out.
Thank you, darling.